But God declared that Israel as nation not only would survive, but they would be regathered. Now, he doesn't just say it in Ezekiel 36. Back up with me to Isaiah 11. I want to show you several of the very clear promises the Lord makes about regathering. Isaiah, so it goes Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentation, Ezekiel. Just back up 4 books to the book of Isaiah in chapter 11. And this is what it says in verse 11 and 12. It's even more impossible than the fact that the Israelites retained their identity without a homeland for 2,000 years, is the fact that they would reestablish their ancient nation. By the way, with the same language that survived all those years. Isn't it amazing to think that when David Ben-Gurion was approached by the world leaders after the remarkable survival of the nation of Israel, after all the Arab against them that was going on, and they put the microphone in front of him, and they said, "What are you going to name this nation?" And he said, "Israel." And they said, "And what language are you going to speak, since your people come from 100 different countries?" He said, "We're going to speak biblical Hebrew." See, that reestablishing of the same place, the same people, the same language is unbelievable. Look what Isaiah said. He predicted it would happen. Isaiah 11 and verses 11 and 12, the Lord makes this promise, "And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time." Let me ask you, what is the second time? Well, the first time, you all know, you've all heard of Ezra and Nehemiah and Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi. Those are called post-exilic writers. Israel went into exile the first time when the Babylonians hauled them out, and God says, you're going to be hauled out of the land the first time for 70 years. And so they were hauled out of the land, put into exile for 70 years, and then the Lord stirred their hearts and brought them back into the land. And they came back, some with Ezra, some with Zerubbabel, and Nehemiah came back and built the wall. You all know the story, Nehemiah building the wall in 52 days and all that, the tremendous. And the prophet Haggai preached to him and said, "Why are you building your own houses, and the house of the Lord isn't fixed? And so stop building your houses and help build the temple." And they did all that. And those people went into the times of the New Testament, and those were the faithful remnant that were in Israel. But a second time, God destroyed them completely, the temple and all. They weren't a sovereign nation then, they were still living in the land. And God dispersed them, as I showed you in all those verses, to the far ends, and they became the wandering Jews. So what does Isaiah say? He says, "It shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people who are left, from Assyria and Egypt, Pathros, Cush, Elam, and Shinar, from Hamath and the islands of the sea. And he will set them up as a banner for the nations, and will assemble the outcast of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah," listen, "from the 4 corners of the earth." So he's talking about a regathering from the diaspora, where they are spread to the far corners of the earth a second time. The first one was when they were just brought back from the Babylonian captivity. The second time is when they're brought back from the Roman utter destruction. So in Isaiah 11 and 12, God says, "I'm going to bring you back." Look at Jeremiah 30, because the same thing is said in Jeremiah 30 and verse 10. So keep going to the right. You're in Isaiah. Go all through its 66 chapters, get to Jeremiah 30 and verse 10. The Lord says this through the prophet Jeremiah. By the way, Jeremiah is the one that's prophesying as the Babylonians are destroying Israel, Jerusalem, the temple. Jeremiah is the weeping prophet. He wrote the laments, lamentations, as he watched Jerusalem, the walls get knocked down, as he watched the people's... you ought to read Lamentations sometimes. People are dead in the streets. Their bodies just lying in the streets. It says that their gold is fallen. They were grabbing for their gold coins, and they were killed, and they're just laying there dead in the streets. And he's writing about this. So Jeremiah is the prophet that oversaw the destruction of the nation of Israel by the Babylonians that was promised by Isaiah, but seen and witnessed by Jeremiah. And look what he says. before that process is completely done. He says, "Do not fear, O Jacob, my servant. Do not be dismayed, O Israel." Verse 10 of Jeremiah 30 declares the Lord, "I will surely save you out of a distant place, your descendants from the land of their exile. Jacob will again have peace and security, and no one will make him afraid." So he says that there's a future generation coming where God is going to do this. And when does he do it? Next chapter. Turn over to Jeremiah 31 and look at verse 8. He enlarges on this. He actually said in verse 4 of 31, I will build you and you shall be rebuilt and all that. But where are they coming from? Verse 8 of Jeremiah 31. "Behold, I will bring them from the north country. I will gather them from the ends of the earth. Among them, the blind, the lame, the woman with child, the one who labors with child together, a great throng shall return there. They shall come with weeping, with supplication I will lead them." And on it goes. When is this going to happen? Well, look at the end of chapter 30, the 24th verse, the last line. When is all this going to happen? It says in Jeremiah 30 and verse 24, "In the latter days." You see, God is always pointing to Israel as the one that's going to show us when the latter, not the late, but the end. See, remember there are two Hebrew words. One is the doheron, and then doaheron. Aheron means the end of days, not just latter days, but the end. And God says, I'm going to precipitate the end by Jeremiah 31, verse 8. "I will bring you from the north and gather you from the ends of the earth." And verse 11, "The Lord will ransom Jacob, redeem them from the hand of the stronger than they." And look at verse 12, "They will come and shout for joy on the heights of Zion. They will rejoice in the bounty of the Lord." And on. And it says that they will have gardens that are well watered, and they will sorrow no more. So Isaiah says God's going to do it a second time. First time, the return under Zerubbabel and Ezra and Nehemiah. The second time, Isaiah just says is in the future. So Jeremiah just tells us it's in the latter days. Now we get to Ezekiel. Okay, now you don't have to turn anywhere else. Just keep going to the right till you find old Ezekiel. And we're going to stay there the rest of the night. Some of you have despaired. You're in who knows where. We'll just get to Ezekiel. It's page 763 in my Bible, okay? So if you have the same version, you'll be set. But Ezekiel 36, look at verse 24 where we were. Ezekiel 36:24, and we'll keep reading from there. "I will take you out of the nations. I will gather you from the countries, all the countries, and bring you back into your own land." So the key is, it's their own land. So this is the first time Israel had their own land since 586 BC was in 1948, period. I mean, read any encyclopedia you want. Israel lost their sovereignty when Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonians, destroyed them, killed their noblemen, hauled their king off into exile, and they became a puppet state underneath bigger powers until 1948. And in 1948, the world body, led by Russia, allowed them to become a sovereign nation. Why did Russia do that? Because they thought they were communistic, because they had communes. You know, the communal farms, kibbutzim, the Russians thought that it was going to be a communist country, or they never would have done that. And God used their philosophy, their economic philosophy of communism, to make them think that they were putting a communist foothold in the Middle East by allowing Israel, with its communal lifestyle and kibbutz farming, and they thought, whoa, we'll get our foot here in the Mediterranean, and they said Israel will become a nation. And they did. Russia was the deciding force of that. Even though the British had revved it up, the Zionists and some Americans, it was Russia that instituted it. But look at what it says. Verse 24, they have their own land, and what's it going to be like? Look at verse 35 of chapter 36. "Then they will say, this is the land that was laid waste and has become like the Garden of Eden." Did you know today that the leading agricultural studies in the world for desert agriculture is Israel? They are the world leaders in drip irrigation. You should see the size of their produce. When you drive around Israel, you go by what looks like wasteland. It's just desert. There's a little strip of plastic, and there are these watermelons this big. And you go, did someone leave those out there? And they just grow on this little tiny strip. And they've got a computer that says, to have a watermelon this big, you need one drip every so many seconds when it's 120 degrees. And so instead of, I'm not opposed if you're a farmer, but, pivot irrigation, just blasting water, just, and you're watering the road, and you're watering the trees, and you're pivoting those things around and draining all the groundwater. That's wonderful if you have endless Great Lake water. But if you live in the Dead Sea area, you put one drip in as needed. And look what it becomes. Look back at verse 35. It says, and their laid waste land will become like the Garden of Eden. And the cities that were lying in ruin, desolate, and destroyed are now fortified and inhabited. Verse 6, then the nations around you that remain will know that I, the Lord, have rebuilt what was destroyed and have replanted what was desolate. I, the Lord, have spoken. I will do it. And again he says, verse 37, I, the sovereign Lord, says it. Look at chapter 37. The Lord continues. Ezekiel 37, we're not going to cover 37 tonight. That's a future event. But Ezekiel 37:21, it says, behold, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen whither they have gone, and will gather them on every side, and bring them into, what does it say again? Their own land. The key to Bible prophecy is understanding that God predicted 2,600 years ago that Israel would have their own land after it was torn from them by the Babylonians, and never returned to them by the Persians, never returned to them by the Greeks, never returned to them by the Romans, never returned to them by the Ottomans and the Mamluks and everybody else that was in all the successive Muslim waves, and never returned to them by the French, never returned to them by the British. But in 1948, all of the nations of the world handed them sovereignty. Actually, it was God using all the nations of the world. So the key to the end of days is when Israel gets their own nation. So that's God's plan. They've been regathered. And the wandering Jews who were without a home for many days, as Hosea tells us, and it seemed impossible that such prophecies could ever be fulfilled, and even many good Bible-believing Christians thought to help God out. For centuries, they said that God was through with Israel, and all those promises, so that they wouldn't be out there hanging, were applied to the church. Did you know that that was done by well-meaning people that were trying to help God out? They didn't think God could ever get the Jews back to Israel and ever get them to have that land because it was so overrun with everything. So they helped him out. And they said, these promises are for the church. And it confused people for decades. But God says, no. All of those promises to Israel should not be spiritualized and applied to the church. And with the return of the Jews and the reestablishment of their nation, it's evident in a unique way that God means exactly what he says.